Hey YouTubers, today I'll be working on a small John Deere snowblower which is made by MTD. What we'll be working on today is the recoil. So here's the blower, it's a small John Deere. Now if anybody owns a snowblower, you've probably had this happen to you. The whole cord's out and it won't go back in. Usually what causes this is a broken spring inside the recoil over here. So to repair this, I'm going to remove the 4 screws that hold the rewind on the cowling, and they're Phillips screws. Now once you've got it off, you can remove this piece of metal right here, just so that it's out of your way. Now it definitely appears that the spring is broken inside the rewind, as I mentioned, because when I go to wind the rope, it just doesn't tighten and you can hear it click. So we're going to have to take this apart. Now what we're going to have to do is remove the roll pin that's in here. But first of all, we have to remove the little cap that's capping this. So grab a roll pin punch, insert it in through here, then grab a hammer and just tap the cap. So all it is a little cap that caps off where the roll pin is. Now to remove the roll pin that's in here, you're going to need a 3/8 roll pin punch that you're going to insert on top of the rewind. And underneath I've got a 13mm deep socket, or 1/2 inch socket will do. Insert the socket part right over here. I'm actually going to set it on top of my vise here because it's a much harder surface to pound the pin out. Now all the parts are going to come out. Now if I pull this out, you're going to see the spring under there. And it came off. It goes like this. Now if I examine the spring more closely, I can see that it's not broken. So probably what's happened is this got unhooked from the little catch over here. So this is how it's supposed to go. In like that. So when you pull the cord, it tightens up the spring like that and then rewinds the rope back in. So the one change I'm going to make is I'm going to squeeze this little hook here just a bit. So when it goes on that catch inside here, it's going to be tighter, therefore it shouldn't come off. Also, you'll notice that the spring is really rusty. If it's rusted like that when you take yours apart, just spray some penetrating oil here or some liquid wrench and then put a bit of motor oil on there, and it's going to keep it nice and smooth. Now I'm going to put a bit of oil on there. What I've got here is a bit of transmission oil mixed in with motor oil. And I'm just going to soak it. That's why I've got a piece of wood underneath to soak up the excess oil. Now while that's soaking, I'm going to show you a modification I'm going to make to the spool here. On most rewind starters, there's usually a notch here for the rope to go in like that, so that when you have the rope back in the spring, you can wind it by putting the rope in the notch so that your rope doesn't hit the sides of the recoil. So I can see on this one it doesn't have it, so it's going to be a bit of a problem to go to rewind the spring. So I'm going to show you how to make a little notch in there. So to do that, I'm just going to heat up the tip of an old screwdriver and then melt it onto the spool. Now I'm just going to melt a hole on this side of the reel. Just like that, about the size of the rope. And your rope should fit in perfectly like that. Now once it's cooled off, trim the edges with your X-Acto knife. And there, it looks like it's factory made. So at this point here, we're ready to reinstall all the parts in the recoil. So I'm going to start by rewinding the rope this way. Next, I'm going to grab the spring and the case, stick it in here, turn it back, and it should hold there when you flip it upside down like that. Now what's very critical here is to match up this hook to the little catch over here on the housing of the recoil. So you may have to adjust this spring here to catch on there properly. If you need to, you can grab the spring like that, tension it down until you know it's going to catch that other hook down there. Now line up the rope to the hole we just melted in the plastic, just like that. And now insert it inside the housing and try to line up the hooks together. Now you'll know you got it in the notches when you turn the spool counterclockwise. It's going to want to come back, meaning that the spring is hooked on properly. So you want to make sure that this doesn't come out of place. Now I've put the recoil on a nice hard surface for pounding back in the roll pin. So before we get started, I'm going to put a bit of oil in here just to make things more smooth. Now this is the order that the pin's going to go. Small washer, spring, then the big washer facing this way up, and another small washer underneath here, all like this. Now what you want to do is line up the parts like this and then pound in the pin. Don't pound it in too tight. You still want the washer to be loose a bit like that. If you hammer down the pin so the washer is at this level with the pawl, you're going to see that it's going to work good. If you've hammered it in too much, just reinsert your roll pin punch here and hammer it about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch out again. Now you're going to be left with the recoil and the rope sticking out like this, so we want to tighten up the spring so the rope will go in all the way. So to do this, you want to hook up the rope with a hook or something like that. Bring in the recoil like that. Insert the rope in a nice hole that we melted in there, and then turn it counterclockwise a couple more turns, and that's going to tighten up the spring, hold it, and then the rope's going to go back in. Now the rope comes back nice and tight and you can pull it out all the way. If you tighten it too much, what's going to happen is you won't be able to pull out the rope too far, and therefore it's going to be useless. So make sure you don't wind the spring too much. You want to be able to extend it to its full reach. Now if you want to tighten it up again, scoop out the rope like I showed you, stick it in here, go counterclockwise to tighten it. If you've tightened it too much, pull out the handle a bit so you have a bit of rope, scoop out the rope, stick it in the hole here, and then turn clockwise to loosen the spring. Now you can stick a bit more oil in here, then pull it over. It's going to keep it nice and lubed and prevent rust from building up. Now you can stick back this cover here by going like this. So this is how this cover is going to go on, and the tabs go in the front. So now I'm going to reinstall the recoil in this position. And now let's pull it over and see if it works. It's that easy to repair your recoil. Remember that a lot of other snowblowers with an older Tecumseh engine like that will have the same kind of recoil, so you can use the same principle from this video to repair your other Tecumseh recoil problems. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in my next video. Take care now.